Using Twitter will allow you and your students to tweet about the news and engage your students in following news events. Start by creating a Twitter account. Encourage your students to use their name and have a professional identity on Twitter. Include a photo and a link to your blog or website. You can click Edit Profile to update all the information, add a photo, and a short bio on Twitter. After you've completed your profile, now you can decide who to follow on Twitter. Ask your students to follow a minimum number of news organizations to start. 10 is a good number. And then each week they can add 3 or 5 news organizations. Here you can see some of the organizations that I'm following: This American Life, NBC Latino, as well as Mini Journalist. You can encourage your students to look for local, national, international media, or via Medium, online newspaper, magazine, television, and also niche media, ethnic, sports, or women's media. So say, for example, I'm looking for a sports site. I go up to the search tab at the top. I'm going to type in ESPN, hit return, and in a few seconds, for example, I can go ahead and follow ESPN Sports. So all you do again is pick any organization. Let's see. Let me do the New York Times. And organizations like the New York Times may have many different Twitter accounts because individuals may be tweeting or sections of the paper may be tweeting. As you can see, I'm already following the New York Times. Another way to find people to follow on Twitter is to look up who journalists are following. So you may take a famous journalist like Anderson Cooper, for example, click on his page. I'm already following him. He has, 4 million followers. So I click on them and I can scroll down and see if there are some people, organizations, or individuals who I may be interested in following. Twitter also will recommend people for you to follow. Here in this section here on the left, who to follow. And for example, it's recommending WBEZ News, Progress Illinois, and it will constantly give you, Tribune Edit Board, suggestions for who to follow. Once you're following news organizations, you can begin to retweet the news items that they put out. Here below, we see HP Latino Voices. I can simply retweet. There's a little retweet button, and just retweet that. Besides hitting the retweet button, I also recommend you add hashtags to your tweets. It can be based on subject matter, but it's also useful for your students to use the hashtag with the name of their course, and that will allow you to track their tweets. So say I'm teaching Reporting and Writing 1. I'm going to go ahead and copy this tweet. Copy it here on the left where it says Compose New Tweet, and I'm going to add an additional hashtag RW1. And then, we want to make sure it's 1. And then I'm going to go ahead and tweet that out. Now, so say all of my students are using hashtag RW1. I go to the top, the search bar, I search RW1, and we can find some of the tweets from my students that have used RW1. These ones in particular were from the spring semester. But sometimes we all know that we have time constraints. So I'm going to show you quickly a tool. It's called Hootsuite that allows you to schedule your tweets. Hootsuite is a program that allows you to import multiple social media networks. You can do Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. I'm using it all for Twitter. And so I'm looking for a tweet, and I'm going to, when I click on it, the tweets are on the left rail, the mentions, people who send me direct messages, as well as tweets that I've sent are all before you, which is a little simpler than looking for it in Twitter behind the different tabs. I want to click this automatic retweet button and say I want to add my course hashtag. There it is. You can see here I'm also keeping track to make sure I don't go above 140 characters, which is the maximum. And then I also here to make sure I'm using the right Twitter account, and I click send. And there you go. And if I update here, on the right, you can see the tweet that I just sent out. Scheduling tweets using Hootsuite is very easy. You find a tweet, this one I've identified here, I click the retweet button. We can see that I still have 28 characters. I'm not going to change anything about the tweet. I might add, again, as I was speaking about hashtags, so that you can track it or for your students. And I'm scheduling and say I want to schedule it for 4 o'clock today. I change the time, PM, got the date, and now it's going to auto schedule for 4 o'clock. So what I may do is schedule a couple tweets in a row, 4:15, 4:30, and then it looks like I've been on Twitter for an hour or more, when really I've scheduled all my tweets in the course of 10 to 15 minutes. Remember, with Twitter, you need to stay under 140 characters. So if you change the content or words of another person's tweet, you should use MT, or modified tweet. Let's find an example. I'm going to show you how to modify a tweet. So I'm going to copy the tweet to modify it, in part because it's 25 characters too long. So MT here. One tip, especially for students who are new to Twitter, is on Twitter you'll see a lot of opinions as well as observations, but it's really important to encourage the beginning journalism students not to share their opinions or react to the news on Twitter. You really just want to use Twitter for them to retweet, share, and follow the news. This is also a good lesson in teaching objectivity. When they take a course like opinion writing or blogging, then they can use Twitter in a more opinionated way. If your students make a mistake or a factual error in a tweet, they should not delete it. The best practice, as in real-world journalism, is to acknowledge the mistake and do a correction. Students should know today that virtually all employers will search their social media profile, and so they should demonstrate professionalism at all times.